So you have lived through trauma, sexual abuse, misdiagnosis, suicide attempts, betrayals, and so many women are living day to day in absolute survival mode. When we're in survival mode, how does it make it harder for us to heal? Welcome, everybody, to this week's edition of the Lindsey Elmore Show. Today, we are going to be talking about how to go from coping your way through life to truly healing. We're going to be focused on high-achieving, overperforming women who are masking their traumas, their abuses, possibly even their misdiagnoses, as well as just all of the pain that they are feeling throughout the day. We're going to dive deep into the nervous system and how it impacts our mental health as well as our bodily health. My guest today is Andrea Clark, and she is not only a good friend of mine, she and I share a very similar path. I was a pharmacist, and I decided, I'm not really helping people with being a pharmacist. She had 13 years of clinical experience as a marriage and family therapist, and ultimately realized the disease model doesn't sit right with her, and she could no longer work within the system. That is why she now works with emotionally overloaded women to help them go from overfunctioning and control to being safe and fully alive as their softest version of themselves. One thing I love about Andrea is her radical transparency. We're going to talk about how we can trust our intuition and stop relying on our performance and the satisfaction of others to make us feel fully alive. This is the Lindsey Elmore Show. Andrea Clark, welcome to the Lindsey Elmore Show.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
I am so excited too, because you and I share a similar story, how we got trained and then we're like, yeah, no, I'm going to not do this anymore. So you are a retired marriage and family therapist. And the reason you kind of got into it was because of all the ish that you had been through in your life. So you have lived through trauma, sexual abuse, misdiagnosis, suicide attempts, betrayals, and so many women are living day to day in absolute survival mode. When we're in survival mode, how does it make it harder for us to heal?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And I also want to point out that women can be very high performing and very driven and look very put together on the outside and still be in survival mode. So survival mode, it doesn't always have a look. It's not always that person super down and out. It can be the woman in the power suit and the 6-figure, 7-figure earner, right? The mom who's running the PTA. It can be because we are really good at masking what we're experiencing inside, because that is what we're taught to do, is to keep it all together. So I just want to point that out. And the reason why it's harder to heal when you're in survival mode is because you can't see past your nose. Your nervous system is really only functioning on a level that gets you through the day. And in order to heal, you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to have everything completely figured out. Your nervous system doesn't even have to be fully grounded to heal. But if you're always in fight or flight, you're always going between go, 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 dysregulation, hyperdrive, and then maybe even complete dissociation, just shut off mode, there's no space for your nervous system to become more flexible and for you to make grounded, sound decisions about your self-care, your healing, your mental health. It's harder to say no to things if you're a yes woman, right? It's harder to say yes to things if you're a 100% no person because you're fully dissociated most of the time. So the first step is to take tiny little incremental steps to get yourself out of survival mode to then be able to start a more holistic healing process.
So let's take the next question in two parts. Number one, I think a lot of women don't even know that they're in survival mode. They are just like getting through the day. Like you said, they're running the PTA, they're getting kids to 15 different sporting events, all the things. Number one, how do we even take that pause and that step back and go, I'm really dysregulated right now? And then you mentioned that we need to be able to take small steps towards moving out of survival mode into a thriving mode. How do we start that process?
Okay. This is such a good question. So the way you can tell if I'm going to throw out a few things. So if you are a driven woman, and whether you have children or not, if you are finding yourself struggling to focus on what other people, when you're in a conversation and you're just thinking, okay, like, let's just get to the point. I can't even stand sitting here listening for more than 5 to 10 minutes. That's a sign of dysregulation, right? Just that, right? Right now I'm sitting with you and I don't have this like, okay, Lindsey, just what's the question so I can answer? I'm very present with you. And a lot of times we're not present. We're having a conversation with ourselves, trying to manage staying present. That is a great sign. I don't know if you've ever experienced that in your life. I mean, I definitely did leading up to this healing process that I've been on. But when we're having conversations with ourselves or we're trying to get our bearings regularly and we find ourselves agitated or impatient with our environment, that's a sign of dysregulation. The other is that you're going to struggle to either wind down to go to sleep or to stay asleep. You're going to feel like you have ADHD. There's a lot of women in later life, like in their late 30s and their 40s, getting diagnosed with ADHD, and they are scattered because they are dysregulated. And you might also feel like it's never enough. I remember feeling like it's just never enough. I need to do more. I want to do more. I feel like I have to do more. Just always doing. Not even feeling like I can settle. And even when I was on vacation or hanging out with friends, there would be times where my mind would be, what's the next thing? What else do I need to do? What else do I want to achieve in my life? What's on my to-do list? So those are just a couple of examples of what dysregulation looks like, especially in a high functioning person. It's not always that going off the deep end, screaming and yelling. It's that that vibrating inside of you that never kind of goes away. It's just like, always there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then for the other part of the question that you asked about how do you start making incremental steps towards, healing or moving away from survival mode, I like to encourage first taking an assessment of what are the things that you can remove from your life that are exacerbating that feeling. What are you saying yes to that you do not have to? What are you saying yes to out of obligation? What are you saying yes to that you feel really annoyed and bitter about, but you do it anyway because you can or because, that's just what you do? What are some basic things you can do to take care of yourself? This whole concept of self-care feels very cliche, but for me, self-care is actually going outside and getting sunlight for 15 minutes before I get on my phone. Things that are actually going to regulate my nervous system and support my hormones as a woman, help me sleep better, That's self-care to me, is the very foundational stuff. And that's like actually a really easy fix, to just go get first sunlight before you start your workday, or you're, getting on screens and things like that. And then the other is to ground yourself. Put your feet in the grass. Get a grounding mat to use under your work desk if you have like a 9 to 5. Um, and then making sure that you're hydrated. Like, all of this stuff sounds so silly because it's so fundamental, but these are the key things. Just hydrating yourself will dramatically shift your mental health within a couple of days. If you're slightly dehydrated, it actually shifts your mood almost immediately and affects your hormones.
Yeah, I mean, it's putting you into a crisis to not be hydrated.
Into a crisis to be dehydrated just slightly.
Mm-hmm.
Your nervous system, all of it, your gut. And so all this stuff that we see all the time that a lot of people think is trendy, like lymphatic drainage or getting first sunlight or hydrating, right? Or it's not trendy. It's just that it's becoming more mainstream, that this is like the first recommendation before the other stuff that we see being recommended by Western medicine. These are the foundational building blocks. These couple of things, and maybe you want to throw in lymphatic drainage if you have the time, right? I couldn't do that at first. Like, I didn't really have the bandwidth or the time. But just getting first sunlight completely shifted my circadian rhythm, and I'm now sleeping an average of 8 to 9 hours a night. Ugh. Do you know what that does for your mental health?
I wish I could sleep 8 to 9 hours a night. Even if I'm in bed for 9 hours, sometimes my Oura Ring will tell me that I actually slept for like 5. And it is so frustrating.
Yeah, and it's especially women with our hormones, we actually need 8 to 9 hours. We need it biologically. That's the other thing, is really just learning a little bit about your female biology. You don't have to be a guru, but understanding how to honor your female biology, because what we need is very different than how the world is structured. And so just doing some fundamental things to support your female biology, you will see radical shifts in your mental health. Just that alone.
Talk to us more about that. How do our hormones get impacted by stress, and how can we work with our biology to help us become less stressed?
Yeah, so and I'm not a hormone expert by any means. It's all mostly been through my own journey of healing. But I have found a lot of the women who I work with, and they're a version of me. If they have high cortisol, if they're go, 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 if they're super driven, if they're the I'll take care of it gal, they usually have really low testosterone. And I have found that there is a relationship between cortisol levels and testosterone. And testosterone is really important for our sex drive, for our muscle composition, for our ability to digest protein, for even our gut health, and the levels of acid in our stomach. And so that's one thing to really think about, is how your cortisol, which is the stress hormone, creates like a cascade of inflammation in your system, and then is going to affect the other systems that regulate your estrogen, testosterone, and progesterone. And I bring up testosterone specifically just because that has been something I have really struggled with. And as I have gotten my testosterone balanced with getting my cortisol balanced and other things like my macronutrients and micronutrients balanced, my energy has gone through the roof. And, my body composition is starting to change. And my brain fog has lifted. So testosterone's a really important hormone for us. And I don't think it gets enough acknowledgement when it comes to women, because we primarily think, oh, that's just for men. No, we have all three as well. And our testosterone levels matter significantly.
They really do. Especially, you mentioned our sex drive. But really, when I think of testosterone, it's not just sex drive and muscle composition and bone mass and all of that. It's motivation. It's that get up and go that is authentic versus what you are talking about is the woman who's constantly holding everything together just by sheer force of will.
Well, it's like I love the white knuckle analogy, when you're like white knuckling it on the steering on the like maybe you're in a storm and you're driving and you're just white knuckling it and you have no choice. You're getting through it. That's how I used to function. Is by my just pure determination, And that's how most women function. And that's not, your body is going to eventually scream at you and it will sit you down. Like my body finally said, all right, sit your ass down. We can't do this anymore. You are unwell. Even though you look like you have it all together and nobody would know you're unwell, you are very unwell by how you're functioning and you're not honoring your body.
So let's talk about when women are just coping. They're just going through the motions every day. You say that that you are on a mission to dismantle the culture of coping. What is the difference between coping with life's challenges and actually just feeling your way through them in a way that is very healthy?
We have such a culture of like grit your teeth and get through it, pull up yourself by your bootstraps.
Grin and bear it.
Yeah, grin and bear it. Nobody wants to cry baby. Like we all have problems type of culture. And I'll be honest, that's how I lived my life for a really long time. And it kind of protected me from a lot of things, but it really hurt my body. And so what I think we need to understand, it's not that you need to walk around crying all the time. It's not that you need to, right? It's not that you need to be a damsel, right? It's not that, but it's more that if you don't actually acknowledge what's going on, whatever the circumstance is, and work through it, you're swallowing it and it has to go somewhere. It goes somewhere in your body. And so when women swallow their feelings, they swallow their experiences constantly, okay? And then it traps in our body and it affects our thyroid. It affects our guts. It affects our nervous system. It affects our organs. And so actually moving through it and dealing with it is allowing yourself to have the experience and to have the feelings.
Blah.
It's uncomfortable. We're taught to not do that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We were talking about it this morning in my therapy group about there's a guy who just got a new job and turns out he's going to be working with his wife's ex-boyfriend. And he's just like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. I don't know how to handle this. And we just kept telling him, like, you can handle the 10 minutes of awkward that it's going to take to get past this. And I think to myself, that could be said about just about anything. You can handle 10 minutes of fear. You can handle 10 minutes of anger. You can handle 10 minutes of feeling a way that makes you uncomfortable. Because unfortunately, if we don't sometimes feel uncomfortable, we forget what comfort feels like. We forget what joy, what excitement, what being enthralled feels like. One of the guys that I go to therapy with, he said the other day, so you mean to tell me the laughter comes from the same place as the tears? And it just tore my heart out because it's so true. If we don't feel the negative emotions, you can't feel the positive ones either.
You can't, because it's not like you get to pick the dial. It's one knob. If you turn the volume down on one by shoving it down, ignoring, pretending, dissociating, busy over. I mean, women run from their feelings by just packing their calendar, and then you're turning down the volume on everything else. It's not, that is a very black and white process.
Talk to us, you worked in practice for 13 years and kind of like me, I reached a point where I was just like, I am not helping people by being a pharmacist. What got you to the point where you said something has to change because this system I am working in is not serving? Was it not serving you? Was it not serving your patients? Like, where did you get to this point where you were like, I'm quitting my job?
I think it was serving me fairly well. I got paid really well by the end of it all. Like my last several years practicing, I got paid very well. Like I was in private practice. I had a lot of out-of-pocket clients. So for me, it wasn't about me, really. It was that people were sitting on my couch, and especially I noticed the last like 2 or 3 years, a lot of women were sitting on my couch saying, my doctor wants me to go on anti-anxiety meds. I don't want to. I don't want to. I've done it before and I didn't, I felt disconnected, or I didn't feel good, or I gained 30 pounds, or I just don't want to go on meds, but I don't know what else to do. And postpartum moms being offered meds almost right away within 2 or 3 weeks without exploring anything else, like their gut health or their mineral levels or what kind of support system they actually have. And I knew a lot about those things, but because of certain rules with licensure and what they consider out of scope and things like that, there's a lot of red tape, especially for therapists specifically. There were things I wasn't allowed to say, even though I knew it could help them. And that really upset me. Like I was starting to dread going and knowing that somebody could sit on my couch and I have all of this information that I could point them towards, or even recommendations I could make, and then I couldn't do it. It just felt like I wasn't helping, and I couldn't do it anymore. And then the pandemic hit and I was doing virtual sessions, and it was getting worse and worse for people. And I just said, I can't do this. I can't do this. This is not in my integrity. And I decided to walk away.
It's really hard. I mean, even doing podcast interviews, I think is more challenging via Zoom. Like whenever I get somebody that can actually come to my house, I get just overwhelmingly excited because there is something different about talking face to face. And therapy via Zoom is just nowhere even in the same ballpark as therapy face to face. And I can only imagine, some people did really well with COVID because they were like, I hated going to work anyways, so now I can work from home. But to your point, a lot of people really spiraled during COVID. And for you to have to sit and listen to that and know that you're not actually getting that human connection that can only come by being face to face had to have been really difficult. Let's shift gears a little bit and talk about intuition. I feel like, okay, so maybe this is a little bit of a stretch, but my friend and I were debating the other day, like what actually is sin, because people in Christianity, we're debating big things. And because everybody has a different opinion about what sin is. Everybody has certain, quote, sins that they will tolerate in their life, in their spouse's life, in their child's life, whatever. And ultimately, she and I came to the conclusion that when you intuitively know the right decision, you know that even if it's hard, this is what you're supposed to do. If you ignore that, that is sin, is what we ultimately came to. Is like when God places something on your heart that you know is the next right step, the next best thing to do, and you ignore it, that is a denial of the divine in a way. And so you teach women how to rely on their intuition instead of being solely focused on the performance that we are required to do as women. Why do you think women find it so hard to actually hear that intuition and then to actually do it?
There's individual circumstances, how you were raised, right? I used to see all these young girls. I used to work with a lot of teenagers, and I'd watch their parents make them second guess themselves constantly.
Constantly.
So they learn to not trust their own voice, right? So when my daughter says, well, what do you think, Mama? I'm like, what do you think? And that's the first thing we focus on. And then if I need to just speak into it a little bit and say, well, I'll just tell you my thoughts. But I really work hard to, she's only 11, but I really work hard to help her learn how to listen to herself and just kind of direct her a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Versus telling her what she should be thinking or if what she's thinking is right or wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have this bigger collective situation where we have been conditioned by the patriarchy. And I'm talking like, let's go way, way back, okay? So that it's about pleasing men, pleasing the system, please, whatever it is, okay? And that has been something passed down to us generation after generation after generation.
Yes, it has.
A woman who's really outspoken or does what she thinks, she is always treated like, who does she think she is?
Yeah, she's so bossy.
Yeah, it's ingrained even in us as women. I actually wrote a post about this just 2 days ago. It's like the sisterhood wound, right? We are trying to all manage and control each other with all these expectations. And depending on who you are and how you were raised, you might give into that more than the next person.
Mm.
And so it takes a lot, because you might displease people you really love and care about by actually listening to your intuition. You might disappoint people, right? You might get ridiculed, these types of things. And we're conditioned that those things are not safe.
Yeah.
Getting ridiculed or displeasing whoever, or that is very unsafe. And so it really comes down to establishing more safety in yourself. And that takes time, and at least 1 or 2 people in your life who will support you and help you through that. And it takes maturity and experience and experimenting. And I'm very dedicated to doing that for other women and really helping them learn to listen to their intuition.
I love that so much. Now, this is a little bit of self-disclosure here. I am the worst when things are going well to go like, let me see how I can burn this to the ground, right? And so like women get into these self-sabotaging cycles that it's like, okay, I'm holding everything together. I'm actually, getting my 8 glasses of water and going outside first thing in the morning. I'm not looking at my phone until after I've been up for 30 minutes. My kids are happy. My spouse is happy. My job is good. Everything is going well. And we go, where do I light the match? And I'm wondering, why do you think that women do that? You mentioned that maybe it's linked to trauma or just patterns that we're used to.
So I think that it's what you mentioned. It can be patterns. Trauma and patterns are the same thing in a lot of ways, right? It's things that are deeply ingrained in us, and it can even be not from our childhood, but generational.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've had things cleared from 9 generations back. And so it's not even always what's happening in our lifetime, but things that have been passed down through the epigenetics of our lineage.
Well, and it doesn't just manifest as trauma. We know that in granddaughters of grandmothers who starved during World War II, guess what? They're more likely to have type 2 diabetes in this generation.
This is crazy. Yes, exactly. Yes. So it's the same for emotional patterns, for relational patterns, for trauma patterns. It's not just preserved for things like type 2 diabetes or, a lot of times this idea that our brain or our mental health is disconnected from our biology or our physical health is so misguided. It's not. We're all one, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mind, body, spirit. And so we can inherit a lot of things. And then there's the conditioning growing up. And there's, core experiences that shape how we think and feel and perceive how we're supposed to be and what's going to help us survive or get approval or, these types of things that make it hard. And I'll just share a personal experience. I just recently experienced this. So even though I've been really good, right? Sometimes I get yanked out, and it's a subconscious form of self-sabotage because for me it's protecting others. So I had a situation recently in one of my businesses where somebody I mentor really needed to take care of some stuff for her, and I found myself after a couple of days having insomnia. And I'm like, hold on. This is a pattern. When you go to war for other people, which is very much ingrained in me as my personality style.
Same.
Right. I take it on, like I embody it. And that's where I'm like, that's the pattern I need to break. It doesn't mean I don't go to bat for people, but I need to stop embodying it and like fully taking it in to my body at that time, because then I struggle with my health and stuff spirals.
Mm-hmm.
Neglect myself.
And so what did you do to still help her while having that boundary?
So I recognized it after a couple of days, and for me, it's just having like a conversation with myself and making a commitment to myself that I have to emotionally detach after the hours of, let's say, 7 o'clock or whatever I decide, right? I can't, there's nothing, it's actually the same when I first became a therapist. I would come home and on the weekends I would cry. I would cry for my clients. I'd be worrying and I'd be thinking, oh my gosh. And I finally realized after a couple months, because I wasn't sleeping well and I was just so consumed, you can't help them after hours and you can't help them on the weekends, and you crying and gnashing at the teeth and hurting your health and then not showing up your best when you are with them, that's not serving them and it's not serving you. And so you have to learn to compartmentalize, and there's nothing wrong with compartmentalizing. It's okay to put things away on the shelf for a little while because you can always pick it back up.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad that you gave that permission right there, because I think compartmentalization gets a really bad rap, and people are like, no, I can't put things away. But we have to, on some level. We have to be able to do it, or else every thought that we have throughout every minute of every day is constantly running through our heads.
Yes, 100%. Compartmentalization is an incredible skill. That's what it is. It's a skill. The issue is when you tell yourself you're compartmentalizing, but you're actually shoving it down, swallowing it, and never dealing with it again. There's a difference. And I think that people just need to be honest with themselves about which one are they doing.
God, how can you even tell?
It's usually having a good friend or maybe a mentor who's going to mirror some things to you and reflect to you in a loving way, saying, hey, I'm noticing some things. What do you think about that? Does that seem accurate or not? That kind of thing. These are conversations I have with the women I mentor all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. Take us out and talk to us about why you think that the nervous system health is our mental health.
So I know nervous system health right now is so trendy. It's trendy for a reason. Everything that we do is from the nervous system, which is an oversimplification, but 90 to 95% of our behavior is subconscious. We do things automatically, patterns. That's why if you've ever asked yourself, why am I in another relationship like this? Or why did I say yes to that friend again when every time I feel disappointed by X, Y, and Z? It's because it's our subconscious programming. Well, the nervous system and the subconscious are besties because our experiences get stored and wired into our nervous system very much so in early childhood. About age 8 to 10 is where our personalities and our points of view and how we think the world works and how we think we're supposed to be in the world is pretty solidified. Although there is such a thing as neuroplasticity and you can rewire, but that's kind of set. And then what happens is our subconscious and our nervous system just look for confirming experiences to confirm this identity that has been formed. So let's say, when you were 10 or, 7, you were rejected by somebody very important to you. And so you have this belief now that people you love are going to abandon you or something. Well, then our nervous system starts looking for those types of experiences over and over until we heal that or rewire that. And so I've been on an epic journey of healing my mother wound. I'm 40 freaking 2. And I have, even in the last couple of years, realized, wow, I attracted in that friendship that's very similar, maybe not the same, but similar to my experiences with my mom, meaning maybe they're emotionally unavailable or, they don't follow through or just different things. And that's because I'm still working on rewiring what feels familiar to me. It's not about what we want. It's about familiarity, because our subconscious goes with what's familiar, not with what we want to manifest. If we want to manifest a new type of friendship or relationship or health or this is where the rewiring comes in. This is where the working through what you've swallowed down comes in.
It's interesting that you say that we're constantly going back to the patterns that we're used to. One of the things that I'm working on in myself is I was raised in chaos. So when things are chaotic and things are crazy, I think that's normal. I
probably thrive in that. I'm the same way.
I do. And my therapist is actually like, you don't thrive. You are there, but you're not actually, like, we need to find better ways for you to thrive. And so, it's so interesting to watch people's faces in my group therapy, because I will tell these stories and people are like, I am a nervous wreck just listening to you tell this story. And I'm like, why? And they're just like, even, something came up last week and someone brought it up again today and was just like, they're like, is it stressing you out? And I was like, no. And they're like, I have been stressed about that story for days, but because I was raised around chaos and everything was just like, woohoo, what's happening next? That's where I can sit and be the most comfortable versus like actually sitting with myself. Blah. Who wants to do that? That's one thing about like getting in touch with yourself. It's like the best part is you get all your emotions back. And the worst part is you get all your emotions back. And it's really tough to go through all the ups and downs of all of these emotions.
Well, when you grow up in a chaotic environment, you don't have to deal with yourself.
No.
Because you, meaning people, are busy dealing with this, managing with this. And so when it becomes quiet, your body looks for ways to create chaos to put you back in what feels normal.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like the self-sabotage with me is very real. And I actually did an exercise just last week where I took a look at boredom and I looked at all of the fears that come up around just this idea of just like, sometimes life's boring and sometimes that's better than chaos, but when you're not used to it, this weekend, like doing laundry and cleaning out drawers, it's like, okay, this is effing boring, but at least it's not chaos. At least it's not chaos.
Here's what I'll tell you. I'll give you a little glimmer of hope, because you and I have parallel journeys, and I will tell you that the more you go down this healing path that you're on, Lindsey, the more you actually kind of crave the boring and it feels good. And like this week,
Yes.
my husband and I, we don't have our daughter, we didn't have our daughter this weekend, and we just hung out by the pool. And I actually really loved it. And normally that would feel so uncomfortable and weird and boring to me just to hang out by our pool.
Yeah.
And like, what, and I'm not solving problems. I'm not doing something. I'm not being productive, or I'm not like out and about. And I'd be like, oh, and now I was just, oh, just felt so good. And so over time, you slowly start to enjoy it a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's certainly better. Like, what would I rather do on a Monday morning? Go in and be like, yeah, guys, it was kind of a boring weekend. I cleaned out my house and like did some laundry and hung around and meal prepped, versus like, yeah, this horrible thing happened that was wacky, or I got into a fight with somebody, or I had this like crazy experience. Like, which would I rather have? And ultimately, you're right. This Sarah Blondin has a wonderful meditation, and she just talks about the simple, mundane life that we get to live. That's where it is, because to your point, if everything is constantly exciting, you're in fight or flight, your cortisol is too high, your testosterone is too low, and you're not thriving.
And it never feels good enough. It never feels like it's enough. We're like coming full circle in a way, because I'm very driven still. I have goals. I'm launching things. I'm doing a lot, right? With my life, with my family. We're planning really cool travel. But how do I say this? I'm really embracing the slow in between, the rest, the like what especially driven people consider like boring or mundane or dumb, right? Like just be honest, right? I mean, who thinks folding laundry is entertaining?
Not
But it's
me.
more this moment you get with yourself while you're just folding laundry.
Mm-hmm.
Be with yourself and kind of rest, and your body's not always in this hyper drive mode. Our bodies aren't wired or designed to be like that.
Well, and you can almost create a meditation out of the simple, mundane stuff in life. Like folding laundry can be either and you're just gnashing at teeth and just angry the whole time, or you can go, damn, I got a roof over my head and a washing machine. Like, heck yeah, I get to fold this laundry right now. Like, there can be something so beautiful to just the most seemingly meaningless of tasks.
Yes, I agree. And there are moments to also just regulate. It's a spot where you don't have a lot of stimulation. Like this idea that we need to be stimulated all the time.
All the time. Yeah.
Think about how humans were born into existence. Think about the cave person. As soon as the sun went down, there was zero stimulation. Like
there was nothing to do.
We are constantly seeking that, and that is such a problem for our nervous system and our hormones, and it is creating a cascade of inflammation in our body all the time. So these mundane tasks, right, they are an opportunity to reduce the stimulation, to downregulate the nervous system, to give ourselves a break.
Yeah, absolutely. And goodness knows we all need a break, because we are emotionally overloaded, overfunctioning, controlling, and oftentimes really high achieving, and ultimately miserable. And and Andrea is here to teach you more about how you can go from this state of simply surviving to thriving. You can find out more about her at andreaclark.co, and check out her podcast, The Truth About Mental Health, especially the episode that I was on, because Andrea is going to teach you how to dismantle the lies that we have been sold about what healing is. And you can be dared to stop coping and truly start healing. Andrea Clark, thank you so much for coming in and being a guest today on the Lindsey Elmore Show.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you so much.